gentlemen, how's everyone feeling today? Awesome. Ready for a titillating talk, I presume? Very good. Excellent. So, we have an exciting talk, a very controversial issue in the VR space, depending on what your point of view is. But nevertheless, we're excited to have a pioneer in the adult industry with us, Ela Darling, known as the first VR cam girl. She's going to bring her perspectives and talk a bit about her experiences and what's going on in the adult VR industry. So without further ado, let me introduce her.
Why, thank you. So my name is Ela Darling. I have been a porn performer for 7 years. I've been a VR porn performer for 2 years. I co-founded a company called VRTube.xxx, as you can see up there, with my business partner 2 years ago. And as of now-ish, I'm announcing that I am also the VR content manager for Cam4 VR. We've partnered with them to bring them into virtual reality in the live cam space, but I'll talk more about that later. So who the hell am I and why should you care what I have to say about porn? I'm on the board of directors for an organization called the Adult Performer Advocacy Committee. We're a lobbyist organization that works on behalf of adult performers. We advocate for their rights on screen, on set, and off set. I'm also on the PASS Advisory Committee, which is the organization that basically chooses all of the testing in the adult industry and works to keep performers safe. So advocating on behalf of adult performers is very, very important to me. And the ethics in the adult industry is something that I am very, very much involved in. So I'm not sure who all is here because you're just interested in hearing about porn at a work conference, and who is here because you're actually interested in creating adult content. So I'm going to touch on some of the production aspects. The key players in porn right now. So there's the pre-captured content. We've got virtual real porn, Badoink, Naughty America, Check VR, Hollow Girls VR is doing some really interesting stuff. They've got their own camera rig they've created. They're working on creating just a player for all VR porn. VR Bangers, Kink VR is one of my very favorites, and Pornhub. Now these are all the pre-recorded content producers, and as you can see, primarily most of them do 360 3D, some of them do 180 capture. Pornhub does 360 2D. And then we've got the live streaming cams, Cam4 VR, who I work with, AlexX, and CamSoda. At VRTube, we've done pretty much every approach to capturing adult content. We've done 180 3D porn, we've done 360 3D porn. We worked with the awesome guys at Mimesis who helped us to create the first holographic porn in VR, as far as I know. We made a dating simulator where you can date me in virtual reality. I'm kind of a tough date, turns out. And that was really cool because it made you feel like you were actually talking to a real person in VR. And then we realized that even cooler than feeling like you're talking to a real person would be actually talking to a real person. And that's when we got into the live cam arena. And we started doing a green screen 180 VR live capture last summer. And that's similar to what AlexX does now. It's a 180 3D capture. It was cool, but it relies on a green screen. And you probably can't tell, but I have green eyes. So with the chroma key, if you have green eyes, if you have green in your tattoos or your lingerie or anything like that, that gets chroma keyed out. And especially when it's your eyes, you kind of look like a demon from a hellscape universe. So it's not necessarily ideal. So we created a new approach to streaming. It's a 360 3D experience that actually only streams a small fraction of that. So when you enter my VR cam stream, let's see, I've got a picture up here somewhere. This is what it looks like. Now you can look all around and you see my actual bedroom, you see the nerdy art on the walls, you see how messy my apartment is, which many people have commented on. And it's a really cool experience. The stitching in VR porn is really important because if you take the wrong approach to stitching, you're not going to feel the intimacy that you really need from an adult experience. So the stitching that we use allows the performer to get very close to the camera, and it creates a very intimate, engaged experience. You feel a strong sense of presence. And being able to interact in real time really makes the experience far greater and far more engaging than anything I've ever felt in the adult industry or outside of the adult industry. Social VR, as we all know, is a very big driving force right now. And with live cams, you have social VR and adult content all in one package. I'm going to bounce back. So that's some of what I've done. Now, if anyone here is interested in producing adult, or if you just aren't really sure what goes on behind the camera, how the sausage is made, as it were, we follow some very strict procedures. There's Supreme Court Statute 2257 that specifies record-keeping requirements. There's a specific release form that all performers have to fill out, and if you don't have a 2257 release form for every performer that appears in any of your adult content, you do risk jail time. We're required to have the 2257 form, 2 forms of identification, government issued, at least one of those has to be a picture ID, and all of this has to be kept in duplicate in 2 separate locations. And again, if you violate this at all, you risk jail time. So if anybody here is interested in entering the adult industry and you don't have a background in it, these are things that you really need to keep in mind. The consequences are not worth it. In addition to this, when I meet new producers, or if I'm working with a model who's new to the adult industry, I think that ethically it's very important to make sure that performers are aware of their rights on set, what's expected of them on set, what they're allowed to say no to, which is everything. And I think it's also very important to inform new performers of the impact of working in the adult industry, which can really close a lot of doors for a performer once they decide to leave the industry. Now, I've been doing this for 7 years. I'm a lifer. It's something I very much committed myself to. But I came into it when I was 23, and I had a master's degree, and I had a very firm grasp on what I wanted to do, and this was it. A lot of people coming to the adult industry are teenagers. They're 18 or 19, and it's important ethically to make sure that they are aware that being in the adult industry is great. It can be very lucrative, but that money that you're getting when you first enter the adult industry runs out after a few months. And in fact, most performers don't last more than 3 months in the industry because of that. Now, if you imagine 3 months making several $1,000s a month is really great to a teenager, but if they're not managing their money well, if they're not planning for a long-term career, if they want to do this for a little while as they transition into their future career of being a politician or a kindergarten teacher, those are things that are maybe not going to be available. And so I think it's very important as content producers to be sure that all of the performers you work with are just fully aware of the implications of being in the industry. I'm on the board of directors of the Adult Performer Advocacy Committee, which I mentioned. We've created a model Bill of Rights and a professional code of conduct. And these are 2 documents that we've distributed throughout the adult industry just to ensure that all performers are aware of what their rights are. I mentioned kink.com. They do VR. They're in the VR space. They're one of my favorite companies, not just because I love the people there, but also because they do something that I believe they were the first big company to do this. They have a model consent checklist. Every time you shoot for kink.com, you fill out a checklist of every possible act that might go on camera. And it's either a yes or a no. You have the option to explain caveats or any concerns. But as a model, you know exactly what you're possibly going to be engaging in, and you communicate ahead of time everything that's absolutely not okay. And they follow that. All of their directors are aware of every bit of that checklist when they shoot. In fact, I've shot for kink.com several times. My first adult scene was for kink. And they'll occasionally have their lawyer drop by and quiz the directors just to make sure that everyone is on the same page regarding consent and what the models are willing to do. Kink also has their performers sign a model Bill of Rights, which is what inspired APAC to create an industry-wide Bill of Rights. If you're a new producer, if you're entering the adult sphere and you've never been in it before, I highly recommend you take these steps. If you've never worked in front of the camera, it's hard to relate to someone who is a sex worker. I mean, being in porn is sex work. Sex workers are marginalized people, and it's important to make sure that as someone who's entering the space, you're respecting the rights and needs of the people that you work with. So I actually don't know how many of you care to make VR porn, but that's some stuff that you should know. So let's talk about what the users want from VR porn. I've been an enthusiastic participant in the r/Oculus NSFW community, big fan of that subreddit. And I've seen what the users have requested. I've seen how they've responded to different kinds of content. Ultimately, users love 360 content. They also love 180 content. When it comes to users, what they actually want is 3D. If you give them 360 2D, they generally respond that they just honestly don't feel like that's actually virtual reality. And when you're in an adult situation, most of the important content that you're engaging in is going to be very close to the camera. The most compelling moments are when the performer gets really up close to the camera and it feels like they're looking into your eyes and really talking personally to you. And so 3D is very important for this, and you have to have a camera that has a very small minimum distance for great capture. So if you're using a camera that you have to be about 2 feet away from in order to get your shot, that really, it inhibits what you're able to create in terms of compelling content for users. Let me drink my coffee. Talent. The talent that you use in VR is incredibly important. With regular porn, people will really take subpar performances if it means that they're getting content that they can access for free or cheap or just on the fly. In VR, the experience is entirely different. In VR, you feel like you're absolutely in the place that you're watching. You feel like you're really standing there with these people. So I've created some videos before with talent who I really like to work with on camera, and then I watched it afterwards and I realized that while they're excellent when it comes to actually fucking on camera, that's really not the primary skill set that you need in VR. You need a performer who can communicate their personality in a very authentic and genuine way. So I would say, when it comes to making VR porn, being able to communicate this persona that you've created is far more important than being able to do athletic, acrobatic sex acts like you might need in regular porn. People feel more empathy towards the performers they're watching. They really feel like they are involved in the scene. So having a performer who can communicate that is really important. And this is a screen capture of our first ever capture that we did in VR porn. It's a 180 capture in my business partner's dorm room at his college, which is where I first shot my first porn scene, VR porn scene. Engagement is very important. With my live cam stream, I've been a cam girl for 7 years. And I've watched the way that VR changes the way I interact on cam. There are accelerated relationships that you're building in VR. My consumers, my viewers, my customers, whatever you want to call them, I've built relationships with my viewers that take months to get to the point that VR can take me in 2 sessions. I have had a user who came to 2 cam shows, and the 3rd cam show he attended, he didn't want to see anything sexy. He didn't care about what I was wearing or not wearing. He wanted to feel safe. He wanted to feel like he was in a safe place with somebody that he trusted and somebody he felt connected to. And this is something that happened after only 2 sessions talking to me in a group setup. So VR has the capacity to really bring these relationships it's an order of magnitude greater than what you can build in a regular cam setup. With a regular cam setup, you're watching on your computer, you're probably texting, or maybe checking your email, you're doing lots of other things. But in VR, it's completely immersive. You are completely engaged with what's happening in front of you. When I'm on cam, I dominate my user's world. I'm all they see, I'm all they hear. And because of that, there's the potential to create a very valuable and long-lasting relationship. There's also the capacity to abuse that relationship. Any transactional relationship, as in live cams or porn or anything like that, I feel like there are unspoken social contracts at stake. So you know that as long as you're paying me, I am going to engage with you as a performer. And you also know that when you stop doing that, the performance ends. It's very easy to forget that when you're talking to a live person in VR. So when we talk about ethics, I think it's very important to remember ethics towards the performers, but I also think it's important to remember ethics towards your consumers and your viewers. People actually fall in love with cam girls. I've got viewers who absolutely think that they are in love with me. And it's important not to take advantage of consumers in that way, and I think it's important to emphasize to performers entering the space that they also need to keep ethics in mind when they're engaging with their viewers. We have created our own camera. It's a custom stereoscopic camera that basically takes a 360-degree room capture, and then we stream live video on top of it. This makes it very easy to watch on mobile. I've had mobile users on 3G in Lebanon, so that's a lot of latency, that's very far away. And because of this technique that we use, which you can kind of see the seams, it's a small capture, but because of it, you can watch it easily on any cell phone device. When it comes to any kind of VR porn, being able to watch it on mobile is of the utmost importance. You can create really, really excellent content that you can only watch on a Vive or an Oculus, and that's cool content, but most consumers don't want to feel tied down to their computer while they're watching VR porn. They need to have at least one hand free, and and if you think about it, a VR headset is a set of blinders, and you're in a very vulnerable position when you're masturbating. And you want to be in a place where you can feel safe. And for most people, that means taking their cell phone into a private place and viewing content there. So being able to work on mobile is of the primary importance. There are other ways that you can do this. You could just do a regular 180 capture. And again, users are okay with 180. When you're watching porn, you're really looking in one direction. You could look all around you if you wanted to. If there's a Caligula-style scene unfolding around you where there's just a wanton orgy, that could be great, but for the most part, users want to have a one-on-one connection. So having over-the-top crazy sexual experiences in VR is a cool idea, but when you get right down to it, the users want to feel connected to this one person. With live cams, I have the opportunity to offer them a reciprocal relationship. They invest their private moments with me. They share their vulnerabilities, and I can do the same with them as well. I mean, it's a very vulnerable place to be when you're naked in front of the entire internet. And sharing that just builds a relationship with your viewers that is paramount. The relationships I've built with some of my viewers just in the small amount of time I've been in VR has been incredible. I've got people who are so excited just about the content that we're doing that they feel like they're participating in the creation of this platform because they've offered us support and feedback along the way. You have a great opportunity to connect with your viewers. Many of these people have told me they've never in their life paid for pornography. We've got an entire generation right now that finds it absolutely audacious to pay for porn. But when it comes to VR, they're willing to open their wallets. Whether it's pre-recorded content, but especially with live content. The porn industry has suffered greatly from piracy, from tube sites, from just this idea that porn is free on the internet, right? So most people don't want to pay for it. That really harms the adult industry. The rates that performers are offered today compared to when I got into the industry 7 years ago is half. That's a pretty big change, especially when you're in the public eye, when you've got fans who are very rabidly enthusiastic about connecting with you. Porn performers receive a lot of attention from their fans, but the rates that they're getting right now don't really give them the means to protect themselves from people who cross boundaries. And I think that VR has the capacity to draw a lot more money into porn, to make a lot of people more profitable again where they're now suffering, and especially to give performers agency where they might not have it now. There's only a small handful of people producing VR content, and even fewer creating the live cam content that we create. One of my goals with our program, which we're able to do it now, but we're working on basically building the infrastructure. In the next several months, we will be offering performers the opportunity to capture their performance. So right now, if you cam with my cam platform, you can cam in 2D to your existing clients, and you can cam in VR to a VR fan base. If you're a performer, the only way to create VR content of your own is to spend a lot of money on an expensive camera array and learn stitching software. It's a very big investment. Or you work for a company and they pay you a day rate, but you have no equity. You don't have ownership over your content. So something that we're working towards, and something that I think is going to be very important for the future of VR porn, is the ability for the everyman to create content easily and accessibly. So like I said, our performers will be able to capture their performances in VR and sell a 360 3D VR performance, as well as a 2D performance. And that's just incredibly empowering for performers. There's nothing more empowering than giving someone the opportunity to make money from the work that they do. Most of the porn industry right now, if you look at the people who really catch your eye, these are big companies with a lot of money. But if you look at the actual content being produced, there's a massive amount of content produced every week, and most of these things are being made by indie producers out of their homes or small studios, distributed through group distribution sites like Clips for Sale, which allows you to create an account, upload your content, and sell it immediately. You don't have to get a payment processor of your own. You just upload and go. And I believe that the future of VR porn is going to be individuals creating their own content, whatever that may be, and being able to monetize it on their own privately. Anyway, it looks like we've about out of time. So if anybody has questions, I'll be around all day. Come up and talk to me. But yeah, thank you all so much.